Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome back. I hope you're doing good. Today's video is the Tarot My Chart tag, or as a response to a video that was called Tarot My Chart. You can tell I'm really well prepared, can't you? So this is a tag that was started by Niamh at NiamhWitch. I will obviously link her channel and her video in the description box below. Please do go and check it out if you haven't already seen it. But basically, the video she did was choosing a deck that had to represent, that had the vibes, the energy of each planet in the sign that it is in her birth chart. So this is astrology stuff. I am really into learning about astrology at the moment. I know my chart somewhat well, not really well. I know my chart a bit. I know what's in there. I don't necessarily feel super confident knowing what all of it means. I sure as shit don't know things like transits and aspects and how it all relates to each other. I'm like very much in the baby early stages of understanding astrology. But I'm really into it. So I saw this tag. I thought it looked really cool. She has given some like prompts for what each planet represents, the planets and also your ascendant, and then depending what sign they're in will kind of alter how that shows up. So I am gonna get straight into it before I try and explain astrology anymore, because I clearly don't know what I'm talking about. So starting off with my ascendant or my rising sign. Side note, this feels very personal. I feel like I'm giving you all my details. But anyway, so my rising is Virgo. I'm a Virgo rising. And so your ascendant, your rising sign, is your natural reaction to new people and new situations. And so my Virgo rising is the desire for alignment, was how I came across it somewhere. And I really liked that. Like, I'm motivated to analyze and build connections between information, piece things together. And I think also part of that is like discarding what feels extraneous. Like, I want to get down to what I see as the important bits of a conversation. So as for the deck I've chosen, it is obviously the Wild Unknown Pocket Edition Tarot. We might not be starting out too strong, I'm afraid. I found it really difficult to pick a deck for my Virgo rising. I'm not sure why, but I landed on this one. And this might partly be because I am working with this deck at the moment for a Virgo challenge thing that I'm doing. Why are we upside down? Just that one. Okay. Yes, so it's got a Virgo link in my mind at the moment, but something about it does say Virgo to me. Oh God, I just threw coffee absolutely everywhere. Wonderful. Okay, brief intermission to try and clean that up. This is where I can't have nice things. I buy myself this lovely mat, which, well, it's fine. It was hard to find one that was my aesthetic. Anyway, I buy myself this mat. I immediately threw coffee all over it. So trying to regain my train of thought. This deck to symbolize my Virgo rising. So yes, something about this feels Virgo more than other decks that I have. And I really, like I say, I really struggled to find something that did feel Virgo-y. But I think considering that the Virgo rising is about, or the way I see it at least, is about simplicity and cutting through what isn't needed. I think that the line work here and like the minimal use of color work really well. And then I also like with this deck in particular how you can map out connections between cards based on these very minimal artistic building blocks. Does that make sense? So because there's, like, say if I pick these two, because there's not a lot of color and not a lot of artistic faff going on, you know, there's not a lot to work with. So I think it's quite easy to draw connections between the color that is there and say, okay, we've got the Two of Swords and the Four of Wands here, and the Four of Wands has the yellow and orange, the Two of Swords has the yellow and orange, but here it's kind of eclipsed, and here it's moving outward from this center where you've also got this blue. So I feel like whatever the yellow and orange may represent here as being hidden is something that is much more expansive in the Four of Wands. Does that make sense? As like how you can like draw connections out from the art and the color in these cards. That's what I do anyway. And to be fair, that is very much how my mind works. I like to make connections between things. And I think that is a big Virgo rising thing. I feel like it's the mutable part of Virgo, is the like adaptive and looking to build up and out, which I think is easier to do with a more kind of simple looking deck or minimal looking deck rather than one that has cards full of information front and center for you to read. Does that make sense? I'm gonna put a ban on myself saying does that make sense, because I will be saying it every 2 minutes because I don't super know what I'm doing with astrology, and so I feel very very like I don't know what I'm doing basically. Okay, so next up, the sun. The sun represents the ego and the self, and my sun is in Libra. And I maintain that we have the most boring symbol in terms of like our like constellation. It's the scales. Like it's everyone else gets like cool animals and stuff, and we're like, oh yes, the scales. So obviously the big thing with Libra is like looking for balance, yes. And Libra is that cardinal air, so it's looking to initiate relationships and communication. And then also I think there's that element of seeking a balance between self and other in terms of relationships, or just between different parts of the self. I think that's the Libra thing in terms of ego and self. And so what's interesting to me is that the sun is in its fall in Libra. So as far as I understand, and I am very much still learning, the sun is in its fall, so Libra's natural inclination to find balance and see all sides runs counter to the sun's ability to spotlight our individuality, which is something that I learned when I was looking at the planets and the signs for this video. I feel like we have to work a little bit harder to let that sun energy shine. Pun not intended. Anyone else who's a Libra sun, let me know if you would agree with that. So my deck pick for this one is the Tarot of Aphrodite, which is entirely unrelated to pretty much anything I just said, but it's just got to be, because look, Libras, we love an aesthetic. I think that's what a lot of that, like, I don't know, but we love an aesthetic. Can I put this one into words? I think especially in terms of ego and self, and like, I feel like it's a way of, why was the Two of Cups upside down? I feel like that does not bode well. I feel like there's something in the balancing kind of overshadowing the desire to like shine and be an individual. I feel like that's why we can get a little bit obsessed with curating an aesthetic and kind of making sure that it looks good from all angles, like sort of a thing. So Libras love an aesthetic. We love to curate. I sure as shit love an aesthetic, and I love to curate. Yeah, and the sign is also ruled by Venus. So like our stereotype when it's not fucking balance and indecision is being flirty, which is not a stereotype I particularly gel with. And you'll see why when we get to my Venus. But I do also have a soft spot for Aphrodite. And this sits on my shelf with my other Aphrodite things and is part of the aesthetic. So I felt like this worked really well. I don't know if you explained that very well. But yeah, I think there's something in that for me anyway, about like looking for balance and looking to make sure one thing isn't overpowering or overshadowed. I think that translates into wanting to like present and appear in the exact correct specific way. At least that's true for me. Hence my love of an aesthetic. And like I say, this deck is just perfect. This deck is just gorgeously presented in and of itself. It's beautiful. Venus rules beauty. Will we sticky? Heaven forbid. Yeah, and it just works, okay? It just makes sense. Next, the moon. The moon is emotions, and my moon is in Cancer, and the moon is right at home in Cancer. It's in domicile in Cancer. I've been learning new words, can you tell? So yeah, cardinal water for the center of our emotions. So I thought, okay, what I need is a sensitive, empathetic, nurturing deck. There's a cat shouting, I do apologize. Anyway, I was like, I don't think I have a sensitive, empathetic, nurturing deck. I've never been called to decks that are traditionally like cuddly and love and light. But then this deck is the closest I've got. It's the one I reach for when I need a little bit of looking after and a little bit of hand holding. This is the Guardian of the Night Tarot, of course. I mention this all the bloody time on this channel. You must be absolutely sick of hearing about it. Anyway, this is the kind of softest, gentlest deck that I have. It still tells me what I need to hear. It's not too fluffy or nice washed. Like this Five of Cups still, I think, represents that kind of mourning, grief feeling quite well. Like it's not, like I said, it's not nice washed entirely. But it doesn't smack me in the psyche with like shadowy shit. Like it's, like I say, this is the one I reach for when I need a bit of hand holding. This deck lives next to my bed, and if I ever feel like I need like a wind down kind of tarot reading, this is the deck I go for because it's nice to me. Anyways, this is the Guardian of the Night. The deck that started my MJ Cullinane obsession. Hey, sweetie. Okay, who is next? Mercury. Mercury is communication and intellect and travel, and my Mercury is in Scorpio, which I think can be summed up as what even is small talk? Yeah, so thinking of Scorpio, Mercury, communication, and the like depth and intensity of Scorpio, I think Scorpio Mercury is very observant, wants to like dive deep and maybe read in between the lines, which admittedly I personally am not very good at, but that's the autism. Yeah, Scorpio is fixed water, it's real deep. And I personally am always diving deep in conversation. Mercury is also my chart ruler because I've got Virgo as my rising, and I grew up with a Gemini mum in a house full of air signs, so I am a chatty bitch. Anyway, the Morgan Greer was my pick for Scorpio Mercury, which aesthetically is not the vibe. It's very bright and colourful, but in terms of how this reads and how this talks to me for the Mercury, it just works, okay? So I know I've only had this a few weeks, but I've been pulling it out quite a lot, and it hits right at the heart of the matter immediately every single time. It's one of those decks where I ask my question, I like pull my cards out, I turn them over, and then I immediately do that kind of like laugh that you do when you've just been, when you're not sure if you've just been insulted or not, and you're trying to laugh it off. Like that's kind of what this deck does. Yeah, it gets right to it. It doesn't wrap it up in, you know, it's not easing me into anything. It just gets straight to it. It goes deep. It exposes the areas that need exploration. I adore this tower. Side note. And yeah, I think that's what the Scorpio Mercury is. It's like I say, like what even is small talk? No, we're getting to like the important shit. We're talking about the stuff that matters. We're going real deep. We're rabbit holing our way down a conversation to get to the stuff that we haven't considered before. You know? This is my Scorpio Mercury. So next up is my Venus. Oh, I had a horrible thought just then that I wasn't recording. So my Scorpio is in Venus. Next up is Venus, which is also in Scorpio for me. So Venus is beauty and love and harmony. And like I say, I think you can see why I'm not like a casual flirty bitch, because my Venus is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is like sex and death. I think a Venus in Scorpio is intensely loyal in a way that can become like possessive and jealous, is like the shadow side of that. Like it's deep. If you're in, you're all in, sort of a thing. So I wanted to pick a deck that eclipses all other decks for me, that like sucks me in, the kind of deck that demands loyalty, but also has that intensity, has that depth that honestly is not very easy to access, which is a lot. And that's the Marielle Tarot. When I finally pull her out of her scarf, like the tower right there on top, wonderful. So yeah, I can't just do a quick reading with this deck. The cards stay out for days. Like I'm poring over the guidebook, I'm reading and rereading the entries, I'm reading up on the correspondences that she uses, and like the myths and the figures that she mentions that she puts into the cards, because I always want to go deeper with this deck, but it is not easy to do. It requires like all of my attention and like commitment to really understand what this deck is saying. Like it is not an easy breezy deck. I can't flirt with this deck. I have to like commit, you know? So Mars is energy and passion and like physicality, and my Mars is in Cancer, which is a bad place for Mars to be. It's really not at home here. It's also in its fall here, I think. So it's like not happy. It struggles a bit. I feel like Mars in Cancer is protective and passive aggressive, which is tricky. And I feel like also combined with the complete absence of fire positions in my chart and like a Mars in Cancer, I'm very bad at confrontation. I'm very bad at standing up for myself. I'm better at standing up for others, but I digress. Maybe that's that protectiveness coming through. Anyways, I was really struggling to pick a deck for this. I don't know why both my Cancer positions were such a struggle, but hey. But in the end, I went for the Outgrow Yourself. Now this feels a little bit like cheating for the purpose of this tag, because it is technically an oracle, but it also is technically a Thoth going by the titles. Like it's both, she can do both. We're upside down. That's why it didn't make any sense. So yes, I just thought if I own any deck that can be described as protective and passive aggressive, this is she. I think I've said before how I like that this deck is probably in my Oracle collection actually, because that was quite recent. This deck is simultaneously like, it's got like a positivity and like a, what's the word, like cheering you on, like affirmation-y kind of thing, but it's like spiky about it. Like pain is growing. I'm like, that's not like mean, it's not wrong, but it's, yeah, it's spiky. Like it's a spiky way of telling you, giving you advice, cheering you on. Anyhow, some of the messages definitely come across as passive aggressive, especially alongside tarot. I was using this last week for my daily reading alongside the Tarot del Fuego. It worked so well, but like, especially because it is a tarot as well, sometimes you get like a duplicate. Like this is the Ace of Swords. If I'm using it alongside a tarot deck, sometimes I get the Ace of Swords, for instance, and then pull this. And so it's like double the Ace of Swords energy, which frankly feels a little bit passive aggressive. And then like, why do you ask what you already know? She's passive aggressive. Anyways, yes, I love this deck a lot, but I think this is the closest to like a Mars and Cancer energy in my deck collection. I did these edges in this yellow to match the back. It doesn't come like this, but I still think this is maybe one of my favorite edgings I've ever done. I just think it looks really cool. Okay, so Jupiter, which is luck and expansion and plenty. My Jupiter is also in Scorpio, and honestly, I'm going off vibes for this one. So Jupiter is expansion and it's kind of outward looking, I feel, whereas Scorpio is more inward looking. It's very introspective. So I feel like that's like, there's like complexity there, like the expansion and the inward. And so purely based off vibes, this is the Lubanko Tarot, is the deck I picked for this, because there is a complexity to this deck, and I think this deck is the Rider-Waite-Smith, while at the same time being not more than the Rider-Waite-Smith, but is providing a different perspective on the Rider-Waite-Smith. Specifically in a lot of the cards, it's quite like a queer perspective on the Rider-Waite-Smith. So it's not completely redefining the tarot, but there's like a bit of that like transformative energy of Scorpio with like the expansion of Jupiter, like it's expanding the meaning of the Rider-Waite-Smith. And generally this is quite an intense deck. It says it right on the back of the guidebook. It's intense. That's kind of my keyword for Scorpio. I'm like, it's intense. Scorpio is an intense sign. So yeah, that's it basically. I think that's pretty much all I have to say for that one. This is, yeah, like deep expansion. Intense expansion. Yeah, that's the Lubanko Tarot. This is another one that I have to like sit with. Again, I can't just do like a really quick off the cuff reading. This one tends to take a little bit longer, a little bit more working through it. Like I'll, especially if I'm doing like a multi-card spread, like I'll pull my cards and I'll kind of think, okay, so this means X, Y, and Z. And then I kind of go back around a few times and think, okay, but actually it means this, and actually it means this. And in this context, it actually means this. Like it is one that I can keep revisiting and keep understanding something slightly different each time. You're not interested? Yeah, I thought not. Yeah? Please don't knock things over, my love. Please don't knock things over. Ooh. Ooh. Go on then. Okay. The drama. That's Ripple. That's my horrible cat. Okay. Saturn is up next. Saturn is hard work, tenacity, and productivity. And my Saturn is in Pisces. So who else has a Saturn in Pisces who are doing some super fun Saturn return right now? Anyhow, and Pisces is watery. Pisces is dreamy. Pisces is mutable water. So I think Saturn in Pisces is like dreamy and productive. I don't know, but it's self-mastery and like of Saturn through like creative and spiritual stuff. I clearly don't know what I'm talking about, but anyway, I went with the Voyager Tarot for this one because it just felt right. Okay, you can tell I don't really know what Saturn's all about. Like I say, I know where everything is in my chart. I don't necessarily know what it all means. So yes, this is the Voyager Tarot. I recently spoke about this because I want to do a bit of a deep dive with this deck. And yeah, this deck was created in the 80s, and it was kind of like, I was thinking about transcendence, like what decks do I have that have that kind of transcendent energy of Saturn in Pisces. And I thought, well, this really did kind of break the mold when it was created. And this, you know, it was created in the 80s and we're now in the 2020s and it's still in print. It's still like, it's still significant. It's still, oh gosh, what's the word? Current? Relevant? I'm not sure. One of those. Anyway. So I feel like it's got that down. It's got that like Saturn energy down in the sense of the like material reality of this deck. But then in terms of the meanings, it really kind of did its own thing with the Rider-Waite-Smith. James Van List, the creator, reinterpreted the imagery really significantly, as you can see, and reinterpreted the quartz to better reflect, you know, the world as he saw it. And I think this also has like a heavy philosophy of its own. It's got like a spirituality of its own. And so all of those things combined gave me Saturn in Pisces energy. Gosh, I really do need to pull this deck out and actually work with it. Yeah, it's on my to be studied list, and maybe I should be doing that while Saturn is in Pisces. Maybe I should take this as a bit of a sign. And like, it's called the Voyager, you know, I feel like that just fits Saturn in Pisces, because like Pisces is the oldest sign in the zodiac in terms of it coming at the end of the year, and it's like mutable water, but it's also the end of the zodiac cycle, so that kind of looking forward energy makes a lot of sense. Anyhow, next up we have Uranus, which is your relationship with society, and mine is in Capricorn, which is radical expansion through like the ambition and discipline and methodical nature of Capricorn. And to me, that is the fifth spirit tarot, which I feel is radical in the sense that, unfortunately, most decks that are created currently do not make the effort to represent everyone and every type of person. And I think this deck is radical in the sense that it has deliberately and explicitly been created to address some of that imbalance. It's a deck, as it says on the back here, tarot beyond binaries. It's a deck that goes beyond the binary, and there is something about the energy of this deck, and also when I'm reading the guidebook, that feels grounded as well. So like that Capricorn groundedness. It also just feels like a practical deck to me. Like it's an inclusive view of real people who make up society. Like it's a bit of a, like it's my most modern realistic deck, because that's not something I usually go for. But this is my most modern realistic deck, and like it just feels like grounded and practical, but also the fact that it exists is a little bit like radical and revolutionary, because there are still not a lot of decks that portray queerness and that intentionally focus on queerness. So yeah, that is my Uranus and Capricorn deck. Okay, so Neptune, spiritual connection, universal truths, and morality. Big fucking energy for Neptune. My Neptune is also in Capricorn. I'm pretty sure that that's like a massive generational thing, I think. Right? How long does Neptune take in each sign? Anyway, that's beside the point. My point being, I am certainly not the only one with my Neptune in Capricorn. Anyways, I'm completely going with my gut on this one. I went for the influence of the Angels Tarot. Again, do I really understand what Neptune and Capricorn means? Like, no, perhaps not. By all means, feel free to argue with me if you think this is way off base. Well, please don't argue with me, but like, just tell me why you think differently, because like I say, I don't know shit about astrology. And I'm learning. So anyways, yes, the angels in this deck, I feel like that is the spiritual connection part of Neptune. Like, to be clear, it's quite a Christian deck. I'm not Christian, but it's like the spirituality influence of it all. So the angels are that spiritual connection element of Neptune. But there is something about the style of this, like it's a collage deck of existing like classical artwork. And the way that it's made up of existing parts, that feels like the kind of grounded, practical energy of Capricorn to me. So that's how I came to this conclusion. Gonna be honest, this was based on vibes far more than any actual knowledge. So that's about all there is to this one. Right, finally, Pluto. I don't know if Niamh put Pluto in her original tag, but I'm going to, because Pluto will always be a planet to me, even if it's not in traditional astrology. And it's also not a planet in current scientific astronomy, I don't think. But anyway, my Pluto is in Scorpio, which is a hella busy sign in my chart. And yeah, Pluto, Scorpio is where Pluto is at home. And so again, it's a lot of transformation, it's a lot of, I have this on an order, intensity, purging and renewing and recreating and rebirth. And so I have the Terra Volatile, which I mention all the fucking time. This deck reads my mind. I swear to God, this deck is always reading my mind. And the artwork is constantly reconfiguring what I know about tarot and what I think about tarot, and the way that it pulls things out, or the things that I pull out of it when I'm reading with it. Like, it's a very transformative deck. I said recently in my soul reading video, which I use this deck for, that I think this is the closest thing that I have to a soul deck. Yeah, this is just a deck that helps me, like, I don't want to say evolve, because that sounds, I dislike when people say that. I think it sounds really obnoxious and unscientific. But yeah, it transforms my understanding of things, I swear, like every time that I read with it. So it is absolutely a Pluto in Scorpio kind of deck. So yeah, that is everything. That is everything for this tag, including my like bonus Pluto prompt that I'm not sure was technically in there, but any excuse for me to show off the Terra Volatile, you know? So yeah, that is it from me. I'm going to leave that there because this has been a rambly one. Yeah, if you have thoughts on what if you have thoughts on my thoughts about astrology, yeah, please let me know if you think I'm like way off base with things, or if you think of things in a different way, or if you have like the same like positions as me, but would pick like a radically different deck. Please let me know because I think it's really cool. Yeah, like I say, I'm still learning astrology. I'm very much a baby beginner of astrology, so please be nice. Yes, anyways, I'm going to leave this one here. Thank you to Niamh for the creating the tag, coming up with the idea. Like I say, go check out her video if you haven't already seen it. Thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me. I hope that you've enjoyed this one. Give me a like if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.